You might be ready to be your own boss, but if your bank account isn't, then your deal could die before it even starts. Buying a business definitely doesn't take millions of dollars. As a matter of fact, it takes a lot less than most people actually think it does. But it does take having an actual financial game plan and making sure that you've got all the right steps and all the right pieces put in place before you actually go ahead and dive in if you want to make sure you're set up for success. All right, so the first step that you're going to do in terms of actually getting ready financially is you need to actually ask yourself some questions. Question number one, do you know your budget and your personal cash flow situation? Question number two, how much personal runway do you actually have for going into a business endeavor? Question number three, what does your personal debt load actually look like? Now, all these questions are really important to be asking because you need to make sure that, there's different ways to go about, acquiring a business. If you've got a full-time job, well, then your runway, you're going to take longer to buy the business and find the business you want to buy because you're not going to be going through that. Or are you going to quit your job and look for a business full-time, in which case you're going to have to live off of your savings. One of the biggest things, a lot of people, especially if you're in my audience, if you've been following my story, you're getting into business acquisition, potentially coming from the real estate side of things. And unlike real estate investments, buying businesses are a lot more of an active activity, right? So you're not necessarily able to hire property managers to run this, and then continue living off of your W-2 and kind of if things up, you're actively going in and this business becomes your source of income, unless you're buying a much larger business. But if you're watching this, then chances are you're not to that level yet. And so you're buying a business that you're ultimately going to run, and you're going to be involved in the day-to-day. And a lot of people have this vision in their mind. I'm I'm going to go buy this passive business that has a leadership team in place. And in small business land, those really don't exist the way a lot of people think that they do. Whereas you can go buy real estate and you can hire a property manager, you can put, tenants in place, and then you can be relatively hands-off. The same can't be said for, buying a small business. So what are the things that you're actually going to need? So you're asking yourself those questions, but this next step is actually understanding the liquidity that you're going to need to be able to buy a business. So first and foremost is the fact that most likely, if you're majority of business owners out there or business buyers out there, you're going to end up using an SBA 7A loan to make your acquisition. With the SBA 7A loan, they're going to require that you bring, at least again, as of July 2025, they're going to require that you bring at least 10% of the acquisition costs to the table. Now, that's the bare minimum. There are some structures where you could maybe bring less, but if honestly, having done my first acquisition where I only brought the minimum amount to the table, and having listened to a lot of other folks and talked to a lot of other folks that have done this, that 10% is probably not going to be enough. You're gonna want to have maybe 15 or even 20% that you're going to bring to the table. Not that you have to necessarily put all of it down as cash at, towards the SBA loan down payment. It might be that you're still only putting 10% down to the loan payment, but that you're going to have another 10% of your purchase price, basically in cash from day one as additional emergency reserves. You need to kind of figure out, what are the additional working capital needs that you're going to, have based on the business that you're buying, right? So if you're buying a business that has a really long cash conversion cycle, meaning you might be buying product from China that's, getting manufactured and put on containers and shipped over and then stored in a warehouse before you have to, you could be looking at, 6 months from you have to pay for something to when you're going to be converting that into dollars, right? And so understanding that working capital need is going to be super, super important to make sure that you have enough cash in the business before you get started. It's also important to understand, again, especially if you're somebody like me who came into business acquisition from the real estate world, that your due diligence and your deal costs are going to be a lot higher on a business acquisition than they are in real estate. Oftentimes in real estate, you've got just a handful of things and lender fees. With a business acquisition, you're going to be paying for your attorneys to draft all of your documents. And like, we're talking about not standard real estate contracts. Like, these are completely customized documents for your transaction. If you're dealing with an SBA loan, you're probably gonna have an SBA fee. You're gonna have your appraisal fees. I would almost strongly encourage you, like, if that you get a quality of earnings report done, which again, like, these are not cheap, simple, audits, even like very, very simple, like what they would call it, kind of like a Q of E light. Sometimes you'll see people offer, can still be many thousands of dollars to full Q of E's costing $20,000, $30,000. Now that we've talked about the like different types of deal costs, and like you've started to like maybe build out a budget. And if you're not sure what your budget is, I'll put a link down in the description below that you go find Sam Rosati. Sam Rosati is an amazing resource. He's one of the founders of SMB Law Group. He is one of the founders of SM Bootcamp. He is one of the founders of what's called SM Bash, which is a big like small business acquisition conference. But one of the things that he has done is he's built out a lot of really great free resources that he gives away, in addition to like his bootcamp, which in all disclosure, like I'm not an affiliate at all with Sam or any of these products, but like I have personally used a lot of his free resources over the last couple of years as I've done due diligence. And I am looking at paying to go to Sam's bootcamp. Like, even though I'm actively doing deals and I've done deals and I've looked at a lot of deals, like, just because I've gotten so much value out of what Sam does, I'm sure I can learn a lot more from him going in person to one of his training classes. So understanding kind of like all of those different, factors are going to be really helpful. Knowing what your credit score is, generally speaking, you're going to want a 650 or a higher credit score to really make these folks feel better about that, how to manage things. You're going to want to make sure that your debt to income levels on your personal side are manageable, because part of what they're going to look at is not only the debt service coverage on the business, but like your global debt service coverage numbers, right? So like if you're trading a W-2 job where you're making a certain dollar amount, they're going to be looking that like, okay, if you're plugging yourself into this new business, a lot of times you end up taking a salary cut for the first, year or two, because again, you're in this rebuilding mode. And if you've got a lot of debt that you need to have serviced and you're not necessarily doing a great job on, managing that, they're going to see that as a potential risk and a red flag to, loaning you, a lot of money to go buy another business. When that is, to the extent that you can come to the table with, a significant personal balance sheet, that is something that can make lenders feel a lot more comfortable. With the SBA 7A loan product, if you have a home that has more than 20% equity, so like your loan to value on your current loan is only 80%, there's a pretty good chance they're going to put a lien, a second position, on your primary residence. Then if you have other assets, so again, I have other real estate investment holdings, that they're, are collateralized as well. Banks like having those as security. But whether you have them from that perspective, or if you have a balance sheet, that's going to make them feel a lot better, especially if you're buying into a large business. Some of the other pieces now to financing avenue is, again, kind of like, where are all the sources and uses of funds? So the uses of funds, for example, are going to be the acquisition. It's going to be paying the bank's fees. It's going to be your working capital. It's going to be all that sort of stuff. So it's like, all right, well, how are you going to fund that? Well, you're going to fund that from, your equity injection. You're going to fund that with maybe some investor equity injection. You're going to finance some of that maybe with a seller's note. And then you're ultimately going to have like that SBA 7A loan product that you're getting. And so if you put a seller's note out there for 10, 20% of the purchase price, you can put performance hurdles in there where if something doesn't go however you outline it, that you can basically reduce the amount that you have to pay the seller on that seller's note. So it shows some investment on the seller side that what they've represented is true, it's accurate, they believe in business, they believe in you as the right buyer, and they're not just trying to like get a quick cash grab and then they're going to run off and they don't care what happens. Then kind of getting into investor capital, right? So again, what are those terms? You got to be careful. As of the new June 1st, 2025 guidelines, all of your investors need to be U.S. citizens if you're using the SBA 7A product. So that's ruled out a bunch of folks. It makes documentation for like funds really, really complicated because everybody in the fund also has to be a U.S. citizen. If you're somebody who's maybe been in the workforce for a while and you've been putting money away in your retirement account, there is a program called ROBS, which stands for Rollover for Business Startups, which makes it sound like, oh, this is for startup businesses. But the way the program is actually written up and defined is that you can actually use this startup concept to actually do business acquisitions as well. And there's a lot of technicality and rules behind it, so I'm not going to get into all of that, but the summary is to say you can use your retirement funds to fund the down payment. So if you maybe don't have the $100,000 or $200,000 that you need, but you have $100,000 or $200,000 in your retirement account, or maybe it's I've got $50,000 cash and then I've got $150,000 in a retirement account, you can basically, you know, kind of mix and match where all of that stuff is coming from. So that's where, again, those sources and uses are going to be, you know, really, really critical. So now that we've established that you really don't need to have millions and millions of dollars saved up to be able to go ahead and buy a business, we should probably actually start talking about how do you actually go find the right business for you, and how do you define your acquisition criteria? So I want you to go ahead and click this video here on your screen, where I will see you in the next video where I'm going to explain exactly those things.